Well, the Democratic Alliance held its policy conference this weekend. Some of the issues discussed include non-racialism, redress, diversity and freedom. This comes after Gauteng leader John Moody resigned on Wednesday. He accuses the party of being captured by personalities only driving white interests. And last year, to remind you, former Johannesburg Mayor Herman Mashaba and former party leader Mmusi Maimane also left the party. Our reporter Gwen Nwengya brings us the latest on that.
It's an issue which Mmusi Maimane, as former leader of the DA, clashed with senior leadership with, including Helen Zille. And the actual policy that's come out of the policy conference on redress, and the wording thereof is quite interesting. Let me go through what the Democratic Alliance says about redress, and it says redress refers to the need to remedy or correct an unfair or unjust situation. And then this important acknowledgement from the DA regarding apartheid. The DA is saying that our past is littered with a myriad of injustices arising from past conflicts, racial segregation and the policy of apartheid. They include the forced removals, job reservations, detention without trial, disparities in education and concentration camps, and the consequences of these injustices, the DA says, remain, and it's compounded by poor governance. And here's the caveat, an important caveat, which indicates that the power bloc that's being led by Helen Zille has had some influence on how the party will address redress. And it says, redress must couple a firm commitment to reconciliation with a commitment to ensuring that inequality of opportunity, which has been a hallmark of our past, is not a feature of our present and future. This goes directly to what Helen Zille is saying, that when trying to address the inequalities of apartheid, Helen Zille contends that the ANC government has simply created a new black elite at the expense of the white minority in South Africa.
Well, Gwen Ngwenya, head of policy from the Democratic Alliance, joining us now here on ENCA. Hello to you, Gwen. Always a pleasure speaking to you. Let's discuss just the tone around this policy conference. It is, of course, being done off the back of what has happened over the past few days. How much of what we've seen from John Moody filtered into this DA policy conference?
None at all.
It didn't feature in the least. Was it something that at least was referenced in the way the DA is going to move forward?
No, I mean, I must be perfectly honest. The values and principles are approached from a policy-making point of view. So we look at the country and we look at evidence, and we assess at this point in time the kinds of values and principles that we want to commit ourselves to inform policy-making. So, no, we don't use time in a policy discussion to discuss the nature of specific individuals' departures.
Okay, then on the issue of redress, then Gwen, we just heard my colleague Gwen Nwengya was talking a bit about redress. So just give me a sense of how the party is going to look at this issue of redressing. Where did it come from? What was the point of departure? And where do you see redress filtering down through the DA?
Yeah. Well, the important thing to note is that today was about committing ourselves to a set of values and principles and saying these particular values and principles must inform how we develop policy and our policy making. So the actual policy itself on redress or economic empowerment is going to make up the bulk of tomorrow's discussion when we look at what we've titled our economic justice policy. So the full details of our economic justice policy are then being discussed tomorrow. But today what we did is, of course, yes, commit ourselves to redress. So our redress commitment was that we recognize the need to remedy and correct the unfair and unjust situation that was created by our apartheid past. And that we recognize that we have to commit, sort of couple our commitment to redress with our commitment to reconciliation, and effectively ensuring that inequality of opportunity, which has really been the hallmark of our past, does not continue to be a feature of the present or the future. And so, I mean, our very vision, sorry, as the DA, just wrapping up, our vision, in the DA has always been that of an equal opportunity society for all. So we it's so important that we continue to commit ourselves to this particular principle.
Forgive me for almost interrupting. I was about to say that it segues very nicely for me, Gwen, to ask you about diversity. Under the diversity discussion 1.5, the DA opposing quotas, whether they be race, gender or other. That fits in with exactly what you were just talking about. The party still very much opposed to quotas. For those that believe BEE and other quotas are still necessary, what's the counter-argument there from the policy side?
Well, the counter is that we want to create a society where there are opportunities for all to pursue a self-determined life, so a life that gives everyone in society meaning. And that when those opportunities exist, people don't necessarily scatter themselves according to the demographic, population or according to a predetermined quota. So that is really that statement, that we absolutely bind ourselves and commit to the idea of diversity, and that diversity means a variety of things, that diversity of experiences, of thought, of talent, of knowledge in an organization is so incredibly important. And actually, it's that diversity that acts as a bulwark against any kind of uniformity of thought and rigidness in an organization. That what you cannot do is reduce diversity to being a matter of demographic representativity and saying that there has to be a specific quota of individuals of each race in a particular organization. So that is what we reject in that statement of quotas, which has long been our position. But as I say, as you are developing policy, it's so important to periodically do a kind of sanity check with your organization and say, look, are we all still on the same page? This is indeed what we all believe in and commit ourselves to. So it's not new, but it was very important that we recommit ourselves to that idea.
And under freedom, when it comes to the freedom of the country and freedom of individuals, is a right and not a privilege granted by government. Is that a dig at what's been happening during lockdown?
I mean, in part, but as I say, these documents are being prepared actually pre-COVID. Our original conference was supposed to be in April, but that it still continues to resonate as something that's relevant now, even after or during this kind of environment, shows the kind of longevity of these kind of values and principle statements, that they are relevant not just to one particular context, but that a value like freedom is always going to be relevant. And I think the COVID pandemic and how it's been handled, yes, perhaps does provide a useful example of how these values and principles are not just abstract, but they actually do translate into practice in terms of how a party chooses to govern.
Well, the DA policy conference ongoing, and for the moment, I'm sure I need to say thank you to you, Gwen Ngwenya, DA Head of Policy. I'm sure we'll be speaking to the DA and unpacking this policy conference as more information does come out of it.